Hey guys, quick little aside before we start today's video. The timing of this video might seem weird. First off, yes, I read the document, and I want to assure you that this video is in no way meant to capitalize off of other people's suffering, and it's definitely not intended to make light of any of the stuff involved with #ChangeTheChannel. This is simply meant to be an objective look at the game show. The document simply reminded me of the show's existence, and I decided to see if it was as bad as I had heard it was, and, well, I've got opinions. This review is not meant as an endorsement of Channel Awesome or their policies. It's just that Channel Awesome might not exist in 6 months when the excitement dies down, so I wanted to do this while it was relevant and while my feelings were fresh in my mind. Without further ado, let's get to the show.
Heads up, America, for this is Pop Quiz Hotshot.
Hello and welcome to How to Fix It. If you're a fan of my videos, you undoubtedly know what Channel Awesome is. And if you know what Channel Awesome is, you know what's coming. If you don't, well then you're in for a treat. Pop Quiz Hotshot is a game show created by Channel Awesome that was funded through an Indiegogo campaign that also funded a few other shows, a comic review show, and a video game-centric game show. And what happened to those shows? Well, that bodes really well. Regardless of your thoughts on Channel Awesome, Pop Quiz Hotshot was an absolute shit show. Between a pilot episode that was so bad it caused backlash from the moment it was uploaded, and it was uploaded to a now defunct video host, so I can't watch it for this review, and a huge overhaul in between that episode and the show that I'm reviewing today, I'm not expecting much. But is Pop Quiz Hotshot as bad as everyone says it is? Yes. Yes, it is. I'm not gonna BS you guys. It is bad. But I managed to fix the room a few months ago, so this should be a piece of cake. Let's get right into it. This is Pop Quiz Hotshot. So the premise of the game show, as explained in the intro to every episode, is that the nostalgia critic, played by Doug Walker, wanted to host a game show with his friends as contestants ever since he was a child. The only problem is, he didn't have any friends. And considering how he treated his colleagues in the context of the anniversary movies, I can't imagine why he doesn't have any friends. In the present, as a moderately successful internet reviewer with power and the help of General Anesthetic, played by Farhad Muhammad, he kidnaps people and forces his so-called friends to participate in the show. The episodes generally featured contestants that were normal people, though some episodes had cosplayers, and one episode even had Uncle Yo and Brad Jones guest star, and basically spent the entire episode tormenting the critic. I admit that episode was pretty decent. The show's format is as follows. Each episode opens with a physical challenge, a sort of mini-game that decides who gets a 10-point lead before they head into the introductions of each contestant, and then General Anesthetic explains the rules of the game. They'll each, in order, have to answer pop culture-related questions given to them by the critic. If they get them right, they get 20 points. If they get it wrong, they're awarded no points. And if they answer wrong but manage to make the nostalgia critic laugh at their response, they get 10 points. They go back and forth with the questions until the spaz attack, where the contestants have to press a button before the other in order to survive the attack. The one who didn't press the button in time is then given a penalty, usually relating to either wearing a costume from the wardrobe of nostalgic reviews past, or to some aspect of the contestant's backstory, like an impression that they can do really well. The winner, if you can call them that, then gets to watch a spazzy cartoon, which is a loud, poorly animated, mean-spirited work whose punchlines either involve murder or suicide. Because suicide is funny, right? Following that, they go into the lightning round, where the questions are supposedly harder than the previous round, but I don't really think they are. Following that round, the player with the most points gets to go head-to-head with the nostalgia critic, answering rapid-fire questions, while the loser is taken off camera and summarily executed. If the critic wins the final round, the contestant is killed, and half the prize money is put into the pot for the next episode, and if the contestant wins, they get to leave with their life and get an Amazon gift card. And every episode ends with the critic and General Anesthetic talking over the credits about some random topic. Honestly, my favorite part of the show was the physical challenges, which is a shame that there's only the one at the beginning per episode, because that would break up the monotony of the questions, since otherwise it's just question after question after question. And the questions themselves aren't bad, though they are sort of easy. I mean, I know that I'm an obsessive loser with no social life who spends his time absorbing pop culture from the moment that I wake up until the moment that I fall asleep, but except for the Big Lebowski themed episode, I pretty much knew every single answer in every episode. Though I will say that the themed episodes, that one and the Star Wars one, were interesting. Now, one thing that I absolutely loved was that in a few episodes they had contestants that were cosplayers, in character. One was this Proto-Man looking guy named Shader, and the other was someone who cosplays as Ed from Ed, Edd n Eddy. And the idea of using cosplayers in character as contestants is a fairly interesting idea, and not many game shows incorporate stuff like that into the show. Most of the time when they'll have on someone like that, it's for the spectacle of let's make fun of the geek. But here, they're treated well. In Shader's case, he's just treated like a regular contestant, and Ed is treated like, well, he's treated like how the characters on Ed, Edd n Eddy treated him. Some people might have found those annoying, but I found it really endearing. Starting at the top, what in the seven hells is up with that dark as hell intro? In fact, the entire premise of the show is messed up and not very endearing to me as a concept to want to become a fan of. Kidnapping? Contestants getting murdered? Even though obviously it's not real murder, it's still not that all likable as a premise. Doesn't really inspire me with confidence about the show. And this was their premise from the start. The original premise from the pilot, which was reworked, and I said before I couldn't actually watch that pilot for this video, featured Brad Jones as the host, with only subtle differences to the plot, including characters known as Miss Stockholm and Colonel Kink. And I won't even dignify those names with a joke. And that makes even less sense because I can at least see the critic as being a crazy kidnapper. In addition, a lot of the jokes that they make are just not funny. The critic or the contestants, and especially whenever the contestant makes a joke that makes the critic laugh to get the 10 points, those are the worst. That's how you know it's staged, because a normal person wouldn't laugh nearly as hard as the nostalgia critic did at some of those jokes. My reaction was more like,
Ryan, in Being John Malkovich, which character said, "I have seen a world that no man should see"?
Santa Christ.
This isn't funny!
Plus, the contestants never seemed at all alarmed or scared based on their predicament of being kidnapped. I'd at least understand why that was the premise, that the contestants were scared instead of being either nervous or boring. And the animation is so bad. Shitty animation was endearing when Nostalgia Critic was just a guy in his bedroom against a blank wall, and I presume that Doug was the one doing all the animation because it was his show and all. But you have a studio, and you had a $90,000 budget from the Indiegogo for this. Shitty animation is not okay. You could have commissioned an animator. I don't know much about budgeting for a game show, but I think that they could have commissioned an actual animator for these. I get that it's part of the charm, but I didn't find it charming. I found it jarring because everything else seems professional enough. A real studio, real equipment, crap animation. And the spazzy cartoons are way too mean-spirited for my tastes. It's South Park levels of vulgarity, but without the intelligence that South Park sometimes had back at the beginning. These are just dark and mean-spirited. And they're way too shrieky and loud. My eardrums felt like they were gonna burst. Additionally, in my opinion, the Nostalgia Critic isn't a great host. To be honest, it just feels like he's Doug Walker and not the Nostalgia Critic, because he doesn't act particularly like the critic all the time. But that's just my take, though. Others might see it differently. One of my biggest gripes is that most of the contestants are bland, and even when they joke, they're not funny. Though, like I said, it somehow gets a laugh from the critic. It's like on Jeopardy when some of the contestants have the personality of a glass of water, but there, I give them a little bit of leeway because they're on an internationally known game show with Alex friggin' Trebek standing in front of them. The Nostalgia Critic is not Alex Trebek. Though I do want to see Sean Connery tear the Nostalgia Critic apart.
Suck on it, Trebek. Suck it long and suck it hard.
And the contestants don't even seem at all nervous or starstruck, which I would understand. They just seem bland, boring, and unfunny. And listen, I get it, they're real people, as far as I can tell based on the fact that they advertised for submission videos from viewers, though I don't know if anyone actually ever submitted, considering the limited number of episodes they made. But if you're doing a game show for the internet, and you have the ability to pick interesting contestants, why pair up two bland ones? Give us an interesting one and a bland one. They did that in the episodes with Shader and Ed. Why not do that all the time? I mean, just the two dudes from the Bat Nipples episode were a horrible pairing, and most of the others were somehow worse than that. In addition, the studio audience is very lackluster, if it's even a studio audience. Thinking about it now, it's probably the backstage and camera crew, but still, be more enthusiastic. The whole reason that shows have an audience that interact with the game with applause, laughter, and booing is to enhance it. Punch it up a little bit. While the penalties are an interesting idea, it's the same fucking joke every penalty. A grating impression and or a stupid costume. And none of them were particularly funny or inspired. There was that one guy who did the Chris Rock voice, which was a decent impression, but other than that, they were just stupid. Dress and talk like Rita Repulsa. Dress and talk like Yoda. Dress and talk like a cowboy. They're all the same stupid penalty. Penalties like that could be funny, just not in the way they use them here. And like I said earlier, I found them interesting, but the themed episodes are very grating very quickly. Like a Star Trek themed Jeopardy episode would be awesome. Less awesome would be Alex Trebek doing an extended, exaggerated Shatner impression. Save the impression for the opening and the closing. There's a reason that I've never done a full review doing an impression. It's annoying and it grates on the ears. And finally, because this is a minor gripe and doesn't really matter, but those asides at the end with the critic and general anesthetic are pretty boring. First things first, change the entire premise, or maybe don't have a premise for the game show. It's just a game show taking place in, and this might be alien, reality. A show like this, whose novelty is based on the guy making it, can totally survive on its own. I get that the premise makes it unique and fun, but it's a bad premise, and I really can't think of a way to make the kidnapping concept work. Maybe if it was just the critic hosting a game show it would work, but I really don't like the kidnapping stuff. Make the contestants act like they were kidnapped and maybe it would work, but I still don't like it. And get more cosplayers or people playing the game in character. That's such an interesting idea that they only really used twice and it's utterly wasted. I mean, think about it. A Deadpool cosplayer, a Rick Sanchez cosplayer, the possibilities are literally endless. If Shader and Ed were any indication, there was potential for comedy there. And I would also want to have, not necessarily better contestants. Okay, yeah, I do mean better contestants. But either screen them to see if they have any on-screen chemistry, or pair them up better so they get to play off of a compatible personality. I'd also have more physical challenges and use that to define who gets the penalty and not the shitty cartoon. Honestly, physical challenges were always my favorite part of Double Dare, and this show is obviously supposed to be an affectionate parody of the Nickelodeon game shows and classics like Press Your Luck, with the spazzies in place of the whammies. But they need to borrow more stuff from those, because as it stands, this show is just rattling off pop culture trivia and making corny jokes. That's what we have BuzzFeed lists for. As for the penalties, come up with some funny ones. Maybe they have to answer all the questions like on Jeopardy and say what is before they say it, making it harder for them. Or maybe every time they get an incorrect answer, they have to do something silly. Those are sorta crappy penalties, but at least they're more varied than wear a costume and do a bad impression. And also get a more enthusiastic audience, or get more crew, give us some more interaction, or some huge laughs when it's supposed to be funny, because it might have enhanced the painfully unfunny parts, because at least someone found them funny. Oh, and in case this wasn't clear based on my thoughts, get rid of the spazzies. They're out of place and don't belong unless their intent is to make an entirely Press Your Luck-based parody game. Do some of that, and the game show might have actually been good.
Heads up, America, for this is Pop Quiz Hotshot.
And that was Pop Quiz Hotshot. an overall pretty bad game show. But it had some good ideas, and that's honestly the worst part, because sometimes the show was really good. It's just that most of the time it was utter crap. Did it deserve more episodes? Hell no. Though the Indiegogo backers were promised 40 episodes, if the rest of them were going to be like these, trust me, we got the better end of the deal on that one. But a lot of those problems could have been alleviated if more thought went into the show. The cosplayers, the physical challenges, the good aspects are there. They're just not taking center stage when they really should be. What's my objective opinion? Pop Quiz Hotshot sucks, but all the pieces are there to create a really good game show. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of how to fix it, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comments section below. Oh, and if you want to be notified of new uploads, you can hit that bell icon. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. Next week, do I hear shoppers? See you next time.